Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Gift of Health weekly session. This is the first one for 2021.
Yes.
Yeah.
So happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year, Arna. Thank you for being
Happy
here.
New Year.
Yeah. I am Dr. Arjun Raipudi, and this is my lovely wife, Dr. Shobha Raipudi. We are co-founders of Gift of Health, where we help people to have more energy, more fun, overcome health issues, chronic health issues, lose weight by using food and lifestyle as medicine. Here we have our yeah. Go ahead.
And we are so lucky that we have a special guest today. So we have Dr. Aruna Nathan, and she is a board certified internal medicine doctor and a lifestyle medicine doctor. So currently she's practicing in Montgomery County, Maryland. And she is one of the first physicians in US, I would say, to be board certified in lifestyle medicine. And where, like, as you know, like lifestyle medicine, it uses evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic approaches to prevent, treat, and often reverse chronic diseases that are so much prevalent nowadays. So she has won a number of awards for her work in medicine and including Outstanding Research Award. Not only that, she has also won numerous awards like Patient's Choice Award and Compassionate Doctor recognition on multiple occasions. She is a mother to two sons who are 23 and 20 currently, and she has a dog. One thing Aruna says that everybody cooks in our home, including her dog.
Dog can
Her dog can cook too.
So Aruna, we are so glad you are joining us this evening. Our listeners are so blessed. We're going to be focusing today on bone health and osteoporosis. You're welcome to type in your questions. Aruna, could you just share with us, like, what really got interested you on this path of lifestyle medicine? You're a board certified internal medicine doctor and lifestyle medicine doctor, which is a very rare combination. And what really got you started on this path?
I hope it doesn't stay rare for too long. I wish more. I want to see more internists actually, also try and combine lifestyle medicine into their practice, because it's almost like having, for want of a better phrase, it's like internal medicine on steroids, right? Because you're really using so much of evidence-based preventive medicine through lifestyle medicine, because lifestyle medicine is like the foundation of all kinds of treatments. And the way I see lifestyle medicine, I think of it as a foundation, and you can use it at each and every stage. You can use it with medicines. You can use it to get people off medicines, because we are seeing now. A few years ago, when I would have to call a patient and kind of let them know their hemoglobin A1C is normal, and it's normal like every 3 months we do it, and it's normal, and then I wouldn't have told them you don't have diabetes, or and I still wouldn't go that far to say you don't have diabetes, but at least we are seeing that people are coming off their medicines with changes in their lifestyle. But what made me follow this? I think I've always practiced internal medicine with a lot of emphasis on preventive medicine. I guess a lot of internists feel that way because we see all the complications. In fact, most physicians, over the years, you see so many complications, and you do realize, just learning from the patients you see, from your family, we may have family history, we see it in our family, we see it in our friends, and then we learn that we can actually catch so many of these conditions much earlier, and we can actually stop them. And then once you see that you can do it, or you've seen this happening, you can't not see it. And then when I realized that I was treating almost 80 to 90% of the people walking into my door in my clinic are their conditions that can be prevented or reversed, then you really want to follow this path. And so when I heard of lifestyle medicine in I think 2015 or 2016, it was almost like, you say, ET go home. Like, I found my tribe, and I found that so many other doctors had, this place where you can exchange information, and everything that you practice is evidence-based, which is important. And just like you would write a prescription for a blood pressure medicine, similarly, you can write a prescription now for exercise, or you can write a prescription, for sleep, and it's all based on science and evidence. So.
Very well said, Aruna. Like you have really brought out the essence of lifestyle medicine, because I would say this is a necessity in nowadays, and this is how medicine should be practiced. Like, yeah, according to us, we think like this is how it should go. And today, I know we promised our viewers that we would be talking about osteoporosis or bone health. So, I'm sure you might be seeing a lot of patients in your clinic with this condition. So, would you just explain for our viewers, what is osteoporosis and
what does lifestyle has to do with it?
Yes.
Because we see so much of osteoporosis, the cases, and every decade, every year, it's on the rise. So,
Sure. So, just to define what osteoporosis is. Osteoporosis literally means thin bones, or weak bones, and so we have these diagnoses of osteoporosis or osteopenia. So when we say osteopenia, it just means that it's almost like a sidekick to osteoporosis. So someone is just getting towards developing osteoporosis. What really is important to know is that it's an important condition that we can actually prevent. And osteoporosis really affects the quality of life, because patients can have these fragility fractures, and especially things that are most devastating are things like hip fractures, because when someone were to have a hip fracture because of a fall, and this usually happens much later in age, once someone has a hip fracture because of osteoporosis or fragility fracture because of osteoporosis, after the hip fracture, their chance of getting up and walking independently is just about 50%, is what the studies say. And there's a very high chance that they may lose independence, and they may actually be, in a nursing home. And so they can really make a big difference in the quality of life. The other fracture that osteoporosis can cause is, or weak bones can cause, is your spine fractures. So those are vertebral compression fractures. And this may present, so you can actually have vertebral compression fractures and not even know that you have it, So you will have patients who might see you and they may just say, I've lost about 1 or 2 inches, or, 2 inches to 3 inches in height. And if we go looking for it, and it could be a vertebral compression fracture. So you can have a vertebral compression fracture and not know it. But then sometimes, when patients will say that they bent forward, they heard a pop, and then they start having this really bad pain. So it can present as pain, and then that pain can be very difficult to treat, and it affects quality of life again. So you can have vertebral compression fracture in these two different ways. And I don't know why it can, sometimes it is silent, sometimes it can be so devastating, but either way, it affects the patient, So these are the two big things that stand out as to why we have to treat osteoporosis. And what is important to know is that these are preventable. So if we were to make some, catch these things early, if we were to, make some, we have to learn about when do you, or what I'm trying to say is that we have to really tackle these things much earlier in life, but even much later in life, we can actually still do a lot of good. And in terms of the muscle, and in terms of having them exercise more. And I'll let you ask your question, and then I can talk about
it. Yeah. So like as you said, like it is a preventable disease. So people think, okay, maybe to have good bones, maybe I should be drinking milk or I need calcium. So this is the common thought that like goes in our mind. So what do you think that we should be eating to have strong bones?
Sure. So I just wanted to complete one thing about the
Sure.
previous part. When we talk about, because every time when we address weak bones or osteoporosis or the process of osteoporosis, it's also important to talk of something called sarcopenia or muscle loss, because muscles and bones are very much connected. And so we know that when we exercise, we can strengthen our muscles, and this can be done at any age. So one of the things with bones is that it's important to recognize that bone is not like a static structure. It's always being formed and being lost, right?
Mhm.
And bone is where we store a lot of our calcium. So 90% of the calcium requirement for our body, in terms of muscle function, nerve conduction, heart rhythm, coagulation, all of these things, we require calcium. We need, and this calcium is obtained from the bones, 90%, and 10% is from food. So we may not always be able to strengthen our bones by eating more, especially later in life, of high calcium foods, but we can definitely strengthen the muscles by exercising. And this in turn will help with multiple different things, not just strengthening the bones. We don't have studies to prove that, but it'll definitely decrease falls. And we can get into that later. But to get back to your question about milk, and so we always think of calcium and milk, So we always think of calcium synonymous with milk, and it's just been ingrained in our head. That's how it's probably marketing is probably what we've heard from a very young age. But there are so many cultures, if you look around the world, they really don't have a very high calcium, a high dairy intake. And if you look in these areas of the world which have low dairy intake, they seem to also have stronger bones. Now, it could be that the areas of the world that consume more dairy are more, they're much more temperate, they're away from the equator. So there may be other factors for them to have weaker bones because of low vitamin D. But it doesn't mean that if people have more milk, they necessarily have stronger bones. And that's not what the studies show.
Yeah, that's a big myth.
Yes.
That's a huge myth for many people who, when they get started on the whole food plant-based way of eating, once we educate them about, hey, the dairy products have a lot of health issues. That the first question that comes up is, if I
Where do you
don't
get your
drink
calcium
if I
from?
don't drink milk and eat cheese, will my bones will fall off?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Like,
so definitely, calcium is necessary, right? Calcium is very important. We have to get calcium from our foods to maintain good health, especially in the early years. You form your bones, you have these cells like I said, the bone is not a static structure, right? So we are always forming, it's always remodeling. So whenever the body needs calcium, you get calcium out of the bones. But then a good amount of this calcium is put back into the bones. So there are these cells in the bone called osteoclasts and osteoblasts. The osteoblasts are the ones. So what is important to know is that when you're young, until about 20 to 30, this activity of building bones is much higher than, when the bone formation is higher than bone loss. And then once you're into your 30s or so, 30s and 40s, it's more stable. The bone formation and the loss is almost like, even. And then for women after menopause, around 45 to 50, you start losing more. So the activity of the cells that depletes the bone goes up a little bit more. So we start losing more bone after menopause. And it's not that men don't lose bone mass, they just lose it maybe 10 years after women. So if somebody were to lose it at age 55, going down slowly, then for men it would be around 65, because it's the gonadal hormones are responsible for maintaining those bone structures as well. And so it's really important that we can make the most of the early years of life, to make sure that you're eating foods high in calcium, making sure you're staying really physically active. So you can really build good bone density when you're young, and then maintain it. And then you keep maintaining these good lifestyles. So that way, even though you have normal loss, which is called physiological, that means it is normal bone loss that is to be expected, but we can prevent that from accelerating. So we want to kind of slow down that bone loss and not and just follow a normal path.
I mean, that's really interesting, Aruna. So like, as you said, like with normal aging process, like in different stages of life, we might see different phases of bone loss and bone formation. So basically, as we age, like what are we trying to prevent?
So as we age, you want to make sure that you're providing that calcium for the bones by eating correctly, right? That is number one. And the other part that is equally important is to keep active, to keep active. And that could be just simple physical activities. So just being more mobile, number one, being more aerobically fit, and then muscle strengthening exercises to actually work against some resistance, so you're building muscle mass, because you can really build muscle mass even into your 90s. You can do that at any age, right? And the other important thing is when you work on your aerobic activity and muscle mass, and you also work on your balance, so you're preventing falls, because one of the things that we can really work on as one ages is balance. And if you think of exercise with 4 prongs, which is aerobic activity, that means walking or swimming or biking. The other one is resistance, which is weight bearing exercises or body resistance. The other is flexibility, and the other one is just balance. Balance actually is something I have seen that people can recover the fastest. So you lose balance fast, but you can also recover it. So if you were to do some simple exercises, so depending on where at what stage in life someone is, if someone is an older person who has not exercised for a long time, is simple activities, just like standing at the kitchen counter with one hand on the counter so that you can always hold that for support, and just lifting one leg off, so you're standing on one leg with support with your eyes open, and you just start doing that for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. You keep adding to it, and soon they will be able to stand on one leg without holding on to the counter, or so these are just simple exercises that people can do to help with balance, because these things are equally important in why are we trying to do all this? We're trying to prevent fractures. At the end of the day, we're trying to prevent fragility fractures, right? And so in addition to the bone density, there are many other factors that also affect this.
Yes. And as you said, it looks like it's always better to start early. Like prevention is the best thing, like if we can do it. But let's say we didn't realize when we were young, but right now, like our doctor has given the diagnosis that we have osteoporosis. So is there any hope?
Of course, there's always hope. There's always hope. So it's important to recognize that, if just having low bone density or osteoporosis, because when we say osteoporosis, we just look at the bone density scan or the DEXA scan, and then a diagnosis of having osteoporosis means that your bones are negative 2.5 standard deviations away from comparable 30-year-old. So if it's a woman, they compare the bone density to a healthy 30-year-old woman, and that's how they put it on this DEXA scan. There's a graph, and if it is negative 2.5 deviations away or less than, then there's a diagnosis of osteoporosis. But that is just DEXA is just one of the things, right? You have to actually look at this. Even there are other factors also. So the best, another good way to look at this is to look at the FRAX screen. So what that is why I'm bringing this up is because if a 55-year-old has has osteoporosis, it's different than a 75-year-old having the same bone density. So it depends on the age of the patient. So if someone comes in and they have osteoporosis, it depends on their age as to what they can do. So a 75-year-old with a standard with bone density of -2.5, she'll need much more than just lifestyle, because at that point we definitely want to make sure, because the risk of hip fractures goes up so high that we would not just say diet and exercise. Of course, diet and exercise will always be in addition, but earlier in life, we can actually really emphasize lifestyle as the only therapy. So you see what I'm saying? It's not just a diagnosis of osteoporosis. It depends on the age of the patient, because we are looking at their risk of major fractures in the next 10 years, right? So in terms of lifestyle, the most important thing is staying active, of course, but eating foods that are really nutritious, high in calcium, and not just having all these calcium foods at one meal, kind of spreading it out in different times of the day, because it's important to recognize that we don't absorb more than, you'll very rarely absorb more than 300 to 500 milligrams of calcium per given meal. So say someone eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We want to make sure that all of these meals have a good amount of foods that are high in calcium. So we have to spread it out. It's important to also know that you can get most of these calcium from just foods, and you don't have to necessarily take supplements. So
that's really good to know. So can you give examples? I know mostly we say eat calcium rich food. So can you give examples like what we can have for breakfast and lunch and supper?
Yeah. So we already talked about dairy not being the only source of calcium. So dairy definitely has calcium. Any serving of dairy has about 250 to 300 milligrams of elemental calcium in it. But if you were to substitute that with a plant-based milk, like say almond milk or soy milk or cashew milk, they are also fortified with the same amount of calcium. And some of them, I believe, are even fortified more than that. So they even have up to 400 milligrams. Foods that are rich in calcium are the dark green leafy vegetables. So you really want to have lots of dark green leafy vegetables, at least with one meal in a day. So most of the times I would say, if you can have 1 cup of cooked dark green leafy vegetables, that's 2 servings of something like kale, something like broccoli, something like bok choy. You see, I'm not including Swiss chard or spinach or beet greens, because these have oxalates in them. So even though they're really good for you for numerous other reasons, they don't release calcium as well as some of the other greens. And there's so many foods that have got calcium in it. Squash has calcium, figs have calcium, oranges have calcium, almonds have calcium. And the bioavailability, that means the amount of calcium that is absorbed, may not be that high with almonds or say beans. But if you look at kale, if you look at the collard greens, if you look at bok choy, they have a very high bioavailability, even more than milk, even more than dairy milk. And and then, sesame seeds, chia seeds, fenugreek, these are all different things. So what I usually advise is, in the morning, say you're eating oatmeal, then try adding some chia seeds to it, try adding figs to it, have an orange. So you really need to have variety of different foods that are high in calcium, and usually if you think of, I don't usually think of just calcium, right? We don't want don't want to focus just calcium, but if you have a variety of different plant-based foods, right? So you have foods that are high in vegetables, lentils, beans, seeds and nuts, you're going to get enough calcium in the day. And say you don't meet all the requirements, if you have 1 cup of a non-dairy milk, and that bioavailability in that is actually more than milk for calcium, you're going to then easily meet the 1,000 milligrams, which is the RDA, which is the recommended RDA. So the key is to spread it out, not have all. So you don't want to have, your shake with your calcium, with the spinach and or with something green and with the chia seeds, and you have 1,200 milligrams of calcium in your morning shake, but you're only going to absorb maybe 400 to 500 milligrams from that. So it's important that you spread it out at different parts of the different times in the day.
That's a wonderful advice, because most of the time, what we have observed, even with many of our students, is like they make these shakes or salads that are loaded with all the foods that you mentioned, but it's a good idea to just spread them out. I want to go back and just touch upon this connection between the animal protein or animal-based foods and the calcium, because there is so much of a belief. It's been ingrained for many of us, thinking that, hey, you gotta eat meat, you gotta drink milk to have strong bones and muscles. Could you share us the connection between the intake of animal protein and the calcium? How does it?
Sure. So no doubt that dairy has calcium. There's no doubt about that. But there are other alternatives. So you can definitely go for the alternatives. When you have anything that is dairy or animal-based protein, meat, along with that calcium, you're getting a lot more with it. You're getting saturated fats. It affects you in different ways. It's really causing causing inflammation in the body, increases, especially with milk. There is an increase in the IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. The most of the milk that is produced is, it's all through pregnant cows. So you're going to also get the progestins and the estrogens when you have that milk, So you have to keep all of that in mind. You're also, when you have protein that is from plant source, right? Instead of the meat source, you're having plant source protein. You are not missing out on anything. In fact, you're getting so many other things with the plant-based protein. You're getting the fiber that is going to go through your colon, and it's going to be fermented by all the bacteria there. So you're going to make all the good bacteria happy, right? Whereas if you were to have more of, milk or eggs or meat, the bacteria that is going to get promoted are not the healthy bacteria. There'll be substances that may be produced that could be harmful. So there is no reason to, there's no reason to have only milk as a source of calcium, especially now when we are able to source foods that are high in calcium from so many different places. And even environmentally, I think for me, that is a big, personally, for me, that would be a big factor to hold me back.
So how about this concern of like having more animal protein from meats and cheese and dairy, having more acid load on the body, and in turn, like, sure. We hear this like concern quite a bit, right? Like there is plenty of evidence showing, going back to 70, 80 years, for the more animal protein intake we take in, the more calcium lost in the bone, and the more calcium excretion in the urine as well. So I think that's something that many of our listeners don't realize, how we think this dairy and cheese is good for the bones, but in turn, it's the evidence is other way.
And just not for the bones, so we're always like, when we think of it, we're thinking of the whole picture, right, of health, right? Just for that, if you look at the long studies, like the Adventist study, the Adventist 2 study, or the the EPIC Oxford study, there is, if you look at conditions, that chronic conditions, right, there's definitely about 30% less cardiac issues in patients who are more plant-based, right? And if you start looking at hypertension and diabetes, these numbers are much higher. So there are many other reasons. So I would say that when you get enough protein by eating plant-based. We get enough protein eating plant-based, so more than enough.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as incomplete protein. You know what we learned in medical school about the essential amino acids and plant-based foods, some of them not having all the 9 essential amino acids. I mean, that's not true, because where is the amino acid coming from? Even in the animal, it's coming, they're eating plants. And it's just that, sometimes, say, for example, you only eat certain things, say someone only eats grains and nothing else, then there might be an issue, because they may lack one of, they might have too much of one of the amino acids and less of the other, but nobody eats just grains, And so as long as you're eating a varied diet, and if it's plant-based, you don't have to worry about lack of protein. In fact, most North Americans, we get much more than needed proteins. And what happens to the excess protein? It's converted to fat. So
yeah, that many people don't realize that excess protein also gets converted to fat.
Yeah.
We can keep going on the negative effects of excess protein and excess animal protein.
Yeah, right? And also the fats that you get with the protein that is animal based. You get with the cheese, you get saturated fats. You get fats that increase cholesterol. You get things that will affect inflammation, and it has been linked to a few good number of conditions, chronic conditions.
So one thing is the getting the foods right. Like it seems like the foods that are the most richest in calcium are the beans and the greens.
Yeah.
And you said sesame seeds, chia seeds, oranges.
Yeah. Right? Oh, and I didn't mention tofu. Tofu is a big, so I think tofu is important to mention, because one of the things with plant-based proteins is that even though it has more protein, it may not all be well absorbed, right? So that's why we have to source it, and there's still enough of calcium to be absorbed, but we still have to kind of, but with tofu, it has amazing bioavailability. It's almost comparable to meat. And so tofu needs a special mention, for calcium. And if you look at how the tofu is set, if it is set in calcium, then you get even more calcium, So I just wanted to bring that up.
Sure, yeah. And for even after this, if anyone is worried or wondering, like anyone listening, we just want to, put this out there. Like even when you're eating dairy products like cheese and milk, where is that cow getting the calcium from?
Yes.
Getting from the plants. So we don't have to go through the cow to get the calcium. Similarly, we don't have to go through the cow or the meat to get the protein. We can directly get it from the plants.
Not in today's age. We don't have to. Yeah. Because go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying from the environmental standpoint, if we were to have to feed everyone in the world calcium from dairy, it would be devastating environmentally.
Yes, absolutely. Not many people realize that it actually, to sustain a family in an animal-based diet, like if you just look at the stats, like 1 acre of land, if it is used to produce food, and to make food of the animal-based origin, it supports like one family, 1 acre of land. Whereas from 1 acre of land, if you produce like plant-based foods, it supports like 14 families.
Yeah.
So that's like 1 to 14. It's so resource intensive to, as you mentioned, like to choose these animal-based foods. It's like being less energy efficient.
Yes. And you don't need it at all. You can eat, and especially, right. When one other thing I like to always say is, it's in bone density. Osteoporosis is so important because it really affects you as you age. You may not realize it when you're younger, but if you eat for your bones, right? If you eat with the calcium source, thinking of calcium, you're pretty much covering everything, because the foods that are high in calcium are also high in magnesium. They're also high in potassium. They're also, they have so many other good things going with them. In terms of minerals, and as long as they are plant-based, you're also getting the phytonutrients, you're also getting the healthy fiber, so there is no reason to not eat this way. But we just have to go slow. We have to start somewhere, go slow, make a small change, and it's fun because you actually, they are pretty, the meals are very tasty. You guys, you do such a great job with all these different workshops and these recipes, and it definitely encourages me to, go to my kitchen and make something. I see something and then I go and run and make that.
And you inspire us, like, we
Yeah.
see all the stuff you're cooking, your family members, like all the stuff that you share on Instagram.
Yes, yeah.
It's any of our listeners, like, you can follow Dr. Nathan, Aruna Nathan. Your Instagram handle is same, right? Dr.
Yeah,
Aruna Nathan,
yeah,
MD.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
And
it's something that I enjoy it, and I think that my I like to cook, right? I like to cook, but I also sometimes feel that it's a lot for just one person to cook at home, right? So I really want to make sure when I talk about cooking that I don't make it another like one more thing for someone to do, right? I want to make sure that I encourage everybody to cook in the family, and so that way, if everyone's work is shared, so especially I like to encourage. I have two boys, so I like to encourage my boys and the men to really cook, because that's when you show that you truly care. And so it's good to cook. And then it's important to cook at home, because we've seen studies after studies have shown that people who eat more at home, the number of chronic medical conditions like diabetes, heart disease, osteoarthritis, obesity, it's so much lower in patients or in people who eat mostly at home. We've come to think of eating out as almost like a normal. It used to be like maybe once a week, or it used to be
Yeah.
like a special occasion thing. And now it's become, a very, very normal thing to eat out. And when you eat out, you don't know how much sugar is in your food. You don't know how much salt is in your food. You don't know how much fat or saturated fat is in your food. And sometimes you can get up to 1,000 calories in one visit to Chipotle or more.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned salt, Aruna. Like, salt has a big connection, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
how does salt affect the bone health?
Yes, I think salt is one of the biggest reasons we have a high calcium RDA, meaning that because of the intake of salt is so high, and when you have more salt in your diet, sodium, you lose that in the urine, and with that you also lose the calcium. And one of the reasons the RDA for calcium is 1,200. So it's for calcium, the requirement is 1,000 milligrams for up to age 50, and after up to 50, 55. After 65 for women, it is 1,200 milligrams. But one of the reasons it is this high is because the sodium content in our foods in North America is extremely high. So, most most people in North America get up to 4,000 milligrams of sodium per day. And, if someone has high blood pressure, the American Heart Association recommends 1,500 milligrams. And if someone were to cook mainly at home, you can get away using 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium a day. So there's a huge difference to what we consider normal. And so sodium has a big role to play. Another thing with diet is also things like diet sodas and these other sodas that a lot of young people consume when they are supposed to be forming their bones, and they have I think it's phosphate, which also causes bone loss. So there are things that we can avoid. Nicotine, smoking, alcohol, all of these are also associated with with overall bone loss, because you will be eating less, so making sure that it is important even for, so when we talk about, calcium or protein, it is important that the person is actually consuming enough calories. So if they're not consuming enough calories, they're not going to get these nutrients, right? It's also important that just being vegan, if they are just having French fries and soda, they're not going to meet any of the calcium requirements. And then you hear about studies which show that vegans have, weaker bones. But if you look deeper into what they were eating, they were not even close to 300 milligrams of getting enough, even up to 300 milligrams of calcium a day, so it's not, but in a true plant-based diet, you can get much more than that.
I'm glad you mentioned about pop, alcohol, smoking, because not many people realize how that depletes calcium from our body.
Yeah.
So, so food is one thing that is important to keep in mind. And you did touch upon like how physical activity is also important to have good bone strength. So one is you were mentioning about like how physical activity strengthens the muscles and how like this muscles and bones are connected. Is there any other way that this physical activity is helping us?
So physical activity in general, I think that I like to think of it as it helps in every aspect, of your health, right? So for your bone density also, you need to have all of those four components of physical activity. Definitely, like you said, muscle strength is very big for maintaining bone density. And when I talk about muscle strength, I usually, see, it depends on the patient. So some of my patients, they go to the gym, they exercise, they can do a lot more weight bearing. But I say someone is just starting, and if they are more advanced in age, something as simple as just getting up from the chair, so like when we do squats, but instead of that, just getting up from the chair without using your hands, or just use maybe a little bit, and then get up, and you go sit up and down but making sure that there is no injury, so safety is always first. But some simple things like that, getting up from the chair, or even doing wall push-ups, these are simple things that you can do for resistance. You can even do exercises like rows without weights, so these are all to keep your muscles engaged. Balance exercises, like we talked about, that's the other thing that's important, easy to do as well. And stretching always helps, but it has to be done in a safe manner. So that's how I would address it. But I don't know if you're suggesting something else with that question.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, Aruna. Like, there are some studies showing actually yoga itself is helping improving the bone mineral density. So especially the exercises that were the stretching postures that focus on the back and the hips. I've come across these are like a handful of studies,
sure,
small size studies where showing like a yoga improves bone health. So,
sure. No, I think that is great, and I've heard of those small studies as well, but we don't have anything large to say that for sure. But I definitely think that you will not go wrong doing
yeah. Yoga can fix many things.
Yeah, but I have to point out one of the I do always see, at least in North America, the way yoga is practiced, because when you go to a yoga studio and you are in a class that there are about 20 people there, and then some of them have been doing yoga for 3 or 4 years, and then you join. So you have to be careful, because you can also get injured, especially with osteoporosis. Some of the forward bending, it can compromise the vertebral structure, so, and also with neck exercises, we have to be careful. If someone has osteoporosis, there are certain poses even in yoga that they should be mindful of and avoid. So it's important that they go to the right centers, and if they have any concerns, talk to the instructor to learn it safely.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we totally agree. Like when we're sharing and teaching about yoga as well, the first thing we teach and share is doing with awareness and honoring the limitations of our body. So that is, but most of the time, how it is being taught in the Western world, it's pretty much being taught as an exercise. Yeah, but anyway, we're not going to go off topic. We'll come back. Yeah, there are some questions from our audience. One is, what do you recommend? Like, what do you think of a supplement for calcium? Like, like
so,
what are your?
Yeah, so I think definitely, we have to know how we are eating, and if we feel that we are not meeting our dietary requirements, right, for calcium, I definitely would say that you can top it off with maybe one supplement, or you can have that glass of that non-dairy milk, which will give you good amount of calcium in it, because if certain brands have up to 400 to 500 milligrams of calcium, and some of them have about 250 to 300, and I believe the bioavailability is 30 to 40% in those. So I definitely and then save. There are sometimes you may have to take supplements because you have trouble with absorption. So patients who have celiac disease, who are not absorbing calcium, that is one of the examples. So if they're not absorbing calcium, or if they're on, very important thing now is a lot of people are on proton pump inhibitors or acid blockers. So they will probably need supplements. So in those cases, we have calcium citrate, which is better absorbed. It's a little more expensive than calcium carbonate, which is available more readily, but I would definitely say that you may need some supplement at that point, but not all of it, right? Not 1200 milligrams, all of it. So try to still get most of your calcium from foods, and then just use the supplement or the non-dairy milk as a supplement in the end. They're pretty well tolerated compared to milk, right? And the other thing is to make sure that you don't take all of this at the same time. So don't take your supplement with your food, which is high in calcium, because you're still only going to absorb. That's important to remember. You'll only absorb a certain amount. You will never absorb more than 500 milligrams at one given point in time.
I just want thanks for that, and I just want to share a couple of things about that. There is some concern about taking calcium supplements indiscriminately, right? Like, because
Sure.
we have come across studies showing more calcium supplements we take, there is a concern for, like, people. Some people have a higher risk of having hypertension is one thing, risk of stroke, and also risk of breast cancer as well. Like there is some association.
So, but from the cardiovascular standpoint, as of now, so the American College of Preventive Cardiology and also the National Osteoporosis Foundation, both of them basically have said that taking supplemental calcium does not negatively impact health. That is the guide as of now, right? We also in terms of kidney stones, right? So if you were to just take calcium from foods, a lot of calcium from foods, it's not going to cause kidney stones. Then this has been shown in I think the nurses, either the Women's Health Trial or the maybe the Nurses' Health Study. One of them have shown that, but it is not the same with calcium supplements, Mm-hmm. And in terms of the other findings, they're still smaller studies. So I wouldn't say that no calcium supplements at all, but I would say limited.
Yes, yeah. No, we just want to say, hey, supplements are not like a free meal. No. Just get it from the food and then like take the supplements cautiously.
Right. And then the other thing is that when you get it from food, it's definitely going to be better absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And the other thing is one thing that comes up with this this calcium requirement thing on a daily basis. Like in US, the recommendations are that you need to get calcium like 1,000 milligrams and 1,200 milligrams on a daily basis. But if you look at the World Health Organization recommendations, the daily calcium requirement is about like some it's 600 to 750 milligrams per day. And I think that ties in with what you mentioned before, is because the amount of animal protein intake is way high in US, and the salt intake is way high. So if our diet, like, is it safe to say if our diet is more whole food plant based, and if we are more judicious and cautious about the salt intake, our calcium requirements, we don't have to worry about it at all if you're getting a variety of whole foods like beans, greens, fruits and vegetables, grains.
Absolutely. I always go back to Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, and I have that on my fridge. Then as long as you're eating close to that on most days, you're getting everything you need.
Absolutely.
So, so it's three, we all know that.
Yes. Yeah, for those of you listeners who know, not aware of it, just Google Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. You can go to nutritionfacts.org and get that as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the other thing is, like, how can we track if the changes that we're making with our food and exercise, if they're helping our bones?
Yeah, so the one of what we have today is the bone density scan. It's probably not the best, but that's all we have. So that is what we can use to track the density. But if you look at your muscle structure, so say if you started exercising and you were having more, you didn't have those strong muscles, and now your muscles are stronger because you exercise, that's a good way of tracking that you're doing well. Making sure your balance is better, so you're preventing falls. Because once again, what osteoporosis, with what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent these fractures, which are called fragility fractures, right? So they are wrist fractures, they can be pelvic fractures, they can be vertebral fractures, they can be hip fractures. So, but what is most devastating, even though hip fractures account for just 13% of overall fragility fractures, is hip fractures. Because if someone has a hip fracture, their chance of getting up and walking is like 50%, And so how do you prevent that? Is you prevent falls. So you improve your balance, and that really goes a long way. Improve the muscle strength, and it really goes a long way. I want to point something out also, is that, when we talk about gender disparity, in osteoporosis, there's actually some gender disparity, because not enough men are getting treated or getting diagnosed or even treated, and so as I mentioned earlier, osteoporosis is not just it's not just a woman's health condition. It does present in men, especially now that people are living longer. It just presents much later in life, and so it presents maybe 10 years after, when you start having osteoporosis. The thing in men is that if men have a hip fracture, their chances of survival is even lower than women. And this may be because they have it at a later age, but it's important to know that. And the other important thing to know is that most of the osteoporotic fractures in general, many of them occur in people who have already had a fragility fracture in the past. And so it's important to recognize that and treat that. So if somebody has a vertebral fracture, compression fracture, their chance of having another vertebral compression fracture or having another hip fracture is really high. So those are things to keep in mind, because a person who has had one of these fractures, they're afraid to get up and walk. They're afraid for the next fall, or they're afraid about how it's going to, how the pain might come back. So one of the men also need to be aware of osteoporosis, and especially if they are on medications. If steroids are commonly used for bronchitis, for COPD, it's used for skin conditions, and steroids puts you at a risk for developing osteoporosis. Certain diuretics do the same. We spoke about the proton pump inhibitors or the acid blockers do the same.
So this is such an enlightening, interesting discussion. Like we covered so much ground on this bone health. Um, I just want to summarize it for our listeners. Don't worry about getting enough calcium from food. Just eat the beans, greens, whole grains, fruits and vegetables. Do the exercise, right? Especially the ones that have balance and flexibility and strength. If you're working on building strong muscles, automatically that will help you towards having strong bones.
And this can be done at any age,
Yes,
no matter
what. Yeah. And you shared that like the sooner you start, the better, but you always have hope.
you always get strong,
And limiting salt intake and lowering soda. Like soda is a huge thing. Soda, alcohol, nicotine. Caffeine. Yeah. Yes. Oh, you're breaking hearts here.
So, and the other thing is that you can find calcium in so many different things, right? Mm-hmm. We only talked about certain foods which have got more, but you'll find it in okra and asparagus. You find it in so many squashes, mm-hmm. It's there in mostly everything that we eat.
Yes.
And I know, like we say greens, and when we think of greens, we only think of kale, spinach, but like there are so many greens out there.
There are many greens. Yeah. So I don't know if we have the time, but if we do, I was going to ask my, my husband's mother-in-law, because I was talking to her about maybe a month ago. And I was like, I've heard there are many greens because I didn't grow up in the south of India. So I was asking her about, all the different greens. And then she came up with like 15 different types of greens. And she said, yeah, we don't even get it in India anymore. I said, that's really sad that you don't even, that you don't find it. I'm sure it's there in some parts of India, but it's not in, people are not consuming it as much, So why don't you guys talk a little bit and I'll be right back.
Sure, okay, yes.
Sure. So that is such an interesting conversation. Like we got so much about osteoporosis and what can be done. So I know there are some questions on Facebook which has been mostly addressed. So another question was, what is the best way to get daily calcium to prevent osteoporosis, and what is the daily recommended?
I think we already covered that. Yes. Yeah. What foods best support
good bone health?
We covered that. Yeah.
So that has been covered too. Yeah.
She'll be right here.
Okay. Yeah.
And,
okay. Like this was such an interesting discussion, Aruna. I mean, like you really hit the nail on the head, and this is such a common topic. Like a lot of the patients are worried about, and like you have really clarified a lot of myths here and covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, one thing is I feel like we underestimate the power of exercise. We know exercise is good for us, but many people don't realize how good it is for bone health as well, right?
Yeah. And it's free.
It's free, yeah.
You don't have to pay for it. You can do it at home.
Yeah. Especially during this COVID time, where all of us are like staying at home and stuff, like just popping this Netflix channels or scrolling through the phone.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be exercise, right? It just has to, it's mainly just keeping your muscles engaged. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't use your muscles, you're going to lose it, right? So think of someone who is in the hospital for, nowadays we don't see it, but if someone's been admitted for like 2 weeks or they're in the ICU, they lose all that muscle so fast. And that's just an extreme, but that's what happens to us very short, like long term, slowly over the years, if we don't use the muscle. So definitely staying active is important. And we just have to start with small things that we enjoy, and then keep building on it. So here she is. Come.
Oh, your mother-in-law.
Come, mommy. So her name is Shanta.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, welcome.
You take a chair.
Yeah, that's okay. You sit. So she's going to tell us, read out some names of different greens that we used to commonly have in India, right?
Yeah.
So you used to eat all of these different greens growing up?
From the fence itself, we can see a lot of greens.
At home?
Yeah, at home. Big fence, and they'll be on the this is Madakitan is a very, very good fruit and nice green. So if we put there in this dosa mav and batter, and then tomorrow we use it, it will get rid of this rheumatic.
Okay. Mommy, tell us all the different greens that you told me one day.
First, I'll see.
Yeah.
Different kinds of spinach. First, mulaikkீரை, and then அரைக்கீரை, பசலைக்கீரை, பருப்புக்கீரை, சிறுகீரை. All these come under the new
like spinach. All of these are spinach varieties.
All of these are spinach varieties.
Yeah, here we only know one variety. Huh?
There are so many things, and then we can call it Karsilanganni. That is for jaundice.
They used to use it for jaundice.
Jaundice. Also, we can every day cook it and eat it.
Okay.
Then
what else?
Modakitan, that is first fish. And then Manatakali Kire. That is a small granulation. It is called Manatakali.
Manatakali Betel. I'll show it to them.
Yeah. Small. That is very good. That is for everything. That is. And then, so these small things we just find on the floor, on the mat and all that, so and we just eat it like that. Then Ponagannikire, that is used as a fence sometimes. Like
what else? Well, you have so many different kires here.
We got Pudina kire, that you will know.
Yeah. Mint.
Yeah.
And Sukangire, it's a small variety, but very nice, little bit bitter.
Okay, like fenugreek.
Yeah.
Fenugreek.
And then we have this Kiranelli. That is from the root they come, and they'll come just like little roots. So that is used mainly for jaundice.
What are the other kires, mommy?
Then Duduvalankire. That you use. And then Sukangire. Kasini kire. It's one of the very best varieties. Vallare kire. That is for brain. First I need it. And then Karuvepile.
So there are so many different greens that we don't even use in Indian cooking anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what I just wanted to we have to learn all of these things again.
And you see that is so amazing. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That is called Kalyane Murunga Ilai. That is called Moringa.
Moringa.
Moringa, yeah. Moringa has become very popular these days.
Yeah.
Then Kotamali, that is of course.
Cilantro.
Then Karpuravalli, that is a very, very sweet smelling thing. And then Tulasi Ele.
Yeah.
That's the base.
So I just wanted to bring that in because I feel like we don't have enough we don't use so many of the things that we did before, and I'm wondering how many nutrients we don't get because of that.
Actually,
Aruna,
but we don't have this ones.
Yeah. So like we do have many different kinds of greens here, like some of
Yes,
the things
that's
that
what
we
you were
don't use
saying.
much, like bok choy is one thing that is underutilized.
Yes.
Leeks is one thing that is underutilized. People also don't use much of collard greens. Most of
Right.
the time, people like we go for spinach, or if you're a little bit brave, you go for kale,
Yeah.
right? But there are so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you so much. Like it, yeah, it is so. Yeah, it is so nice
So-
to hear, because rarely we get to like hear all these names.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
why I
so
thought,
much.
you know, when I heard it for the first time, I was like, wow, everyone needs to hear all these different. And so, but you're right, you know, because that's what she said too. She said, you guys have other greens that we don't have back home. So, and we should definitely utilize those.
Yeah, like rather than focusing on what we don't have, like
Yeah.
if each one of us, like every time we go to the grocery store, try different green,
Yes.
right? That's make it a challenge, like try different green.
Yeah.
But most of the time we just stick with one or two greens, that's it.
Yeah. So one of the things I don't know how much time we have, but what I used to, you know, just say eat greens, right? Some like 6 or 7 years ago, I would tell my patients eat greens, and then they would be like, I don't know how to make, say, for example, kale. How do I cook kale? And then I would tell them something, you know, simple things. And then I realized that they're already cooking other greens. So they said, oh, when I told them the recipe, they said, oh, it's just like spinach. I said, yeah, just like spinach. So now when I just say, make kale just like spinach, or make broccoli just like spinach, or, you know, so it's not anything. The technique is the same for most of these greens. It's the easiest thing that you can, you know, just saute and have. And you don't need much time.
Wonderful. Yeah. I see some comments on our Facebook page, the Giftaful page. Like in Newfoundland, there is a tradition where people have Sunday dinner, like for Sunday afternoon lunch. It's actually lunch, but it's called Sunday dinner. That's a whole different story, but it's a Sunday dinner. There is a having greens is also a traditional part of the traditional dish. Yeah. And the other one thing that is available and more commonly used here is turnip greens.
Yes, yes.
Especially in summertime.
Yes. I haven't tried. I mean, we use turnip a lot, you know, the actual, the turnip bulb, but I don't think I may have used it once or twice because we had it, but I've not cooked them. I would love to make more of that.
Yeah.
But
there's Sandy is saying like Sandy is one of our students, like she's been on our lifestyle medicine Giftaful programs. She's saying like she knows a friend whose bone mineral density showed improvement. The only thing she can think she did different was doing yoga.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And, you know, we need more and more of these so we can actually have, you know, more studies to prove that, you know, and because what can be better than, you know, just exercising and letting your body get stronger.
So thank you so much, Aruna, for this was a wonderful session. And like when you go back to the Facebook, you will see a lot of comments, like people really enjoyed your session, and a lot of people are commenting, oh, it's such a great session. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this, both of you.
No, thank you. And like, it was such a pleasure to have you. And like, you have really, I mean, like educated so well about bone health. And I'm sure like people have got a lot of tips here, what they can do to improve bone health. So that was wonderful. And thank you so much for your time, Aruna, for taking the time.
Thanks so much, Shobha and Arjun, and hopefully one day, you know, we can visit you guys up there.
Yes, you should. Like, you know, we say we're in the paradise on earth. Newfoundland,
we would love coming up there.
Oh, wonderful,
So hope to see you all soon too.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks.